So I'm I call a recovering Catholic. It's like my joke. It's like the raised in the church kind of vibe. And I really struggled with that in the connection. And there was just, I never felt like I fit ever. I used to get called like all the names. And I learned as I got into plant medicine that there is no coincidences, that just because we can't see it doesn't exist. Like just because it's not in our visual plane, it doesn't mean that it's not there. And that energy does get stuck in the body. I've seen some wild things in ceremonies that make you question the reality of life. But the one thing I will say is there's a big faith in trusting in the unknown and trusting in what we can't see and what our energies will do when there's things blocked. You know, blockages energetically, like I love that you described it like that Impala, because that's such a great example of the nervous system just resetting itself. Shaking is such an amazing way to remove energy. I do that after I work with someone, my left hand will just uncontrollably just like, are we done? Are we going to stop? So for you, how has that been? Because if that's the way you seem to work, and that seems to be a way that helps you heal, how has that led you or helped you lead into your life after you've had your children? Because I mean, little one's little. And so that means you've kind of dove into this head first. I mean, the results are, in my opinion, you can't deny.
Speak for themselves.
150%, especially if you've had everything prior to that checked. So how has that been for you kind of walking forward? Because you said you're very spiritual.
Well, so I've always been, so my grandmother's Buddhist, like Japanese Buddhist. My mom is Jewish, but raised us Catholic.
Okay.
She said she wanted to give us a choice, but she never told me I was Jewish until like adulthood. So
Thanks.
like, well, that wasn't really a choice. For me, I have just seen the capture of identity everywhere. It's not to one specific group, and that includes religion. I think that there's so much overlap when you look at all of the holy books that it's very clear that most of them are talking about the same thing. And if finding a community with very rigid rules and prescription works for you, then that's great. Because I think the biggest problem is that, as Jamie Wheel would say, we have this God-shaped hole in our hearts, right? So many of us don't believe in anything bigger, and I think that that's a problem because if you think you're the center of the universe, that's overwhelming and it's just not practical. So you need to believe in something bigger than yourself, that this life matters. So if the label works for you, then that's wonderful. I have a thing against labels and rules, and I don't like being told what to do. And I think that God is the most personal experience that there is. And for someone to tell you that this is the only way to experience God, the only way to touch God, doesn't make sense to me. And what I really don't like is the idea of original sin. So, and that's, Catholics love that one. So I don't believe that you come into this world with sin. I mean, most people, you see a baby and you're like, that is God. That is the closest to God that most people will ever see, is like that purity of a baby and a child. And they're like, what is sin? I think sin is being out of integrity and in alignment with your true self. And that's going to look different to a lot of people. And so I think I want to be able to experience God by myself, or with my shaman, or with my husband, or with my friends, and in meditation, and whatever way that might look like. In ceremony, I don't want it to be this very sterile thing that's coupled with shame and punishment, because to me, that's not God. And then you can get into the conversation of, has God evolved? Because if you look at it as God is the creator and made us, wouldn't you kind of expect a certain kind of evolution and consciousness from a creator as well? So if you look at the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament, it's almost like they're talking about a different God. One is very authoritative, very punish driven, very fear driven, and the other one seems to be a lot more loving. So I choose to believe in a more loving, graceful God, and one that isn't going to punish you for the rest of your life because you did something wrong, because that's not a creator. I mean, as a mother, there's nothing your kid's going to do that's unforgivable for eternity. Zero. There's always room for grace and redemption. So I just have a lot of problems with I guess, the human element of religion. It's not like I don't believe in God. I very much do. It's not that I don't believe in an afterlife or heaven or hell. Like, I believe in those things. I just think that it's probably different from a lot of those books. And I think a lot of it is supposed to be interpreted. That's why I think a different word for the Jews is like those that wrestle with God. And that's one thing that I love about the Jewish religion is like you'll have all of these people at a table and they're arguing and everyone has a different perspective and it's in love. It's like a very much a lighthearted argument, but that's what it's supposed to be. You're supposed to wrestle with these things and not just take it verbatim, because at the end of the day, a person wrote that line, right? And then we don't even know if that's all of it. And again, there's so many other interpretations. And then there's books that predate the Bible that have very similar stories. So again, I think a lot of them are talking about the same thing. And it's like, what is the core of that? And then how do you want to incorporate that into your life? So it's to raise little spiritual beings and know that, you know, you're not a body, you have a body, you're a soul. And to listen to that and not try to not let anyone take it away from you. And I think that that's what so much of society and the school does, is we layer label after label and identity and trauma and punishment, and this is how you integrate into society, right? You break that child to where now they lose their true identity, their true soul and knowingness. And now they're operating on a set of rules that we have agreed are best for the collective. So it's to, how do you become an integrated human so where you can function in society and thrive, but also not lose the core essence of who you are?
That's a hyper complicated question too, because I think first off, I absolutely love so much that you view that your viewpoint. Like last night, it's really funny, and I just want to address it because I think it was really funny. It's like all I kept thinking was like, what don't we agree on?
We kept trying to find stuff.
And you're like, I think I got one. I was like, no, you don't.
I was like, I watched that, and you were too nice. And you're like, oh,
no. We're just trying to be a nicer person.
We matched at dinner last night. We showed up in
the same outfit.
I had to take my necklace off so it wasn't ridiculous.
Listen, I think that's what's really beautiful is there's so much more complexity to you than I love hearing you talk about things this way, because so many people, I believe, look at religion one facet. It's this and it's that and that is it, and there's no way to move it or think about it differently. And it's funny that you say that from a spiritual perspective, you're able to say God, because for me as a child, God was attached to Christianity and to this Catholic Church. And this may sound controversial, but I am one of those people where when we had that hard conversation last night, this is similar. I don't forgive people who hurt kids. Like, I get emotional about it, full stop.
Right.
I can't. There's just that part of me. And I know, the basis of being a good human is forgiveness. But at the end of the day, there's a line for me.
I don't know if it's about forgiveness. I think it's about not holding on to rage. The old samurai, right? So before you chop off someone's head, you want to be centered before you do it. So there's this old Japanese fable where the guy spits in the samurai's face because he's about to be beheaded, and the samurai walks out of the room. So the guy's like, ha, 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 I got him. And he waits a day and he comes back, or maybe it's 2 days, but he takes his time, comes back, is centered, and then goes and does it, because he's not going to be reactionary. Right. So I think the thing with that is obviously firing squad, right? Clearly. But it's to not then hold on to that and, have this acid eat away at you, which I think you do see. You do some people that is, they're lost in the reaction of it. And it's hard because it's evil, and it's really hard to see evil. And there's this quote where we think evil is this dark thing and it's hard to find, but evil is a blinding light and it doesn't want you to look at it.
Exactly.
Right. So it's recognizing it, doing the actions necessary to stop it.
Yeah. We just haven't taken the actions. That's part of the problem.
No, for some reason we're trying to normalize it and be inclusive of it. And it's like, try that in the wrong state, buddy. It's not going to work.
Good luck. But that's my point in saying is there's certain things to me that are unforgivable, but that I don't have to hold on to the malice of it and the darkness and the weight of it. I know it's happening. I know that I can't change that, But I know that the way that you do change that is by working individually with each person to find peace, to find themselves and align themselves so that you can overshadow, you can be bigger than that. And it's, again, I'm not naive to think that I can go and fix the Catholic Church, but the mafia that it is. But I'm consciously aware that if I'm a better person, my child will be a better person. And hopefully over time, if we create better humans, we're going to have a better result. The spiritual aspect is interesting to me because I've had to work through that attachment of God with that and find peace in the word God, because for a long time it used to set me off.
A lot of people in the spiritual space won't use it. So I very intentionally use it.
So, and that's what I've actually started doing is, I actually told someone, they're like, you found God recently. I'm like, no. God always existed. I found God within myself and started to understand that our souls and our energies are so much more connected. And when we align ourselves, it all makes sense. And that's the feeling of God, that peace, that meditation, that sitting in ceremony. Whatever it is that you want to do to connect, I feel like that should be welcomed and loved and cherished and just uplifted. And so when my son asked me the other day, completely out of the blue, when I was making lunch, I just looked down. He goes, Mom, what's God? I went, tiny human, you're intense. And I said, I paused for a moment because I remember looking back in my childhood going, I would never have asked that because I was in church 2 days a week.
And you were told.
I was told what God is. I was never shown what God is. And children learn by watching, not by being told. And so I have a tendency to do this. He's not much shorter than me now, but I get down to his level and I get to his level and I go, honey, God is you. God is the trees and the birds and the ocean and the moon and the stars, and it is all one, and we're all one, and we're all attached, and we all have an energy. And when we honor that energy and when we look after ourselves and we're being truest to our highest self, and that is the connection to the Creator. And he goes, okay, and just walks away like it was the most easy conversation ever. And to me, that was so indicative of children. It's so black and white. It's so simple. When his grandfather died, who we named him after, his great-grandfather, Papa, he goes, he's in this bag? Because he was cremated. And I said, yeah. And he goes, I'll push him out. I'll do it. So he gets down there and he's pouring his ashes. I'll shovel him in. Don't worry. There was just this detachment. And when my father-in-law's brother died, it was Jewish. It was Jewish, and so it was a Jewish ceremony. And he goes, we're sitting there in the front row, and his wife is just, really going through it. And he goes, is he in the box? And I said, yes, honey, he's in the box. Where does he go after? I said, we're going to tape him out back. And he's the first one with the shovel, just in there. And what was so beautiful about it was he got to experience death in a positive way. Mm-hmm. And that it is not the end of life, and that it is not the end of this dark, heavy thing, but we can feel it, we can go through it, we can experience it, and then we can move on and live by honoring them and speaking their name and like telling their stories. And that to me is God. And so I've worked really hard with that, with the word God, because it was just so negative for me for so long. And now when I hear it, I get excited. But I think that I love more than ever that you are able to sit in all of these different modalities with it and sit with God in that. And I think the difference is, as I've seen this, I had a conversation with someone recently, and they go, we see you burn sage and Palo Santo, and we see you doing breath work. And
There's
this,
some right there.
I saw it when I came in, and I was like, oh, girl, what's up? And they're like, it's very dark artsy of you.
Oh yeah, they go right to witchcraft, which I'm like a modern day witch, so I might as well lean into it.
I have been called a witch since I've been 5 years old. I was told I was seeing things that didn't exist, that were fully existing. And people will label you and tell you it's wrong that you find God in that way. Well, no, I understand energy, and I find peace, and I want to clear myself. And I've seen things come out of people's throats, and I've seen the changes it can make in their lives. So don't tell me that there isn't something more powerful at play here. Mm-hmm. And just because it's not your way of doing things.
Right. And there's plenty of religions that use other things. I mean, so again, my grandma's Buddhist. Incense are very powerful, right? It's welcoming ancestors, it's welcoming spirits. You're supposed to do it very intentionally. My son does that. So, I mean, I do incorporate like a little bit of her Buddhism in the house. We have a little shrine, and we have the incense and the bells and his beads, and he does like this num prayer. Oh my It's so cute in his little 4-year-old voice, because they don't have their R's or anything yet. So I just lost it. Oh, so incense, right? So the
Yeah.
Palo Santo sage. You have the old Christian Catholic Church that used to actually use cannabis and incense
Right.
going through. They used psychedelics. Somewhere along the line, they got rid of that and kind of forgot that that was part of their religion. It's anything that I think it's all power and control, because if people can access God on their own, then they don't need the institution, and then they don't need to be paying these tithes, and it's just a certain level of sovereignty and freedom that a collective doesn't want people to have. But I mean, people have always used different modalities to get to God.
Absolutely. We know that psychedelics were a massive part of religion for a long time. Psychedelics have been a massive part of several different programs. But for some reason, the second you give somebody the tool to heal themselves and not need you, we have to remove those right away so that you're reliant. That is a problem for me. I know that a lot of people have become reliant on psychedelics as their modality or their identity. And I encourage those to maybe look at why you're doing it before you keep doing it, and look to integrate properly. Because a lot of people, the program that I coach on is with Heroic Hearts Project, and it's a mandatory integration program. And the whole point of that is so that when you're going into this eyes wide open, super prepared, ready with an intention, set diet, movement, you're as clean as you can go in. We're going to give you the best chance at success.
Right.
You're going to go through the experience, and you're going to come out, and then you're going to work with me again. And you're going to integrate the absolute living hell out of everything that you learned, because the point is, you're not necessarily supposed, like, you don't need to be doing this constantly.
Well, how long is the integration process?
So it depends. So my personal practice, people are much longer, but the HHP program is 3 sessions on the front end, plus group sessions as well with everyone you're with. So it ends up being 6 sessions, 3 one-on-one, and then you're in your group 3 times. Then you go into the medicine with the 10 people you're with. And then afterwards, it can go up to 6 sessions that they'll fund on the back end as well, plus your group. So you're tied in with community, you're shown how to work with yourself, you're given the tools to do so, and then we genuinely help you reset you back down in reality and ground you in really deeply. And that's why I work with them, and that's why I do it privately for other clients. Like, I have a lot of larger clients who are, CEOs or, in services that they don't want people to know that they're dabbling. And we will do an integration program for probably 2 months before and 2 months after. Because I think it's really important that you're really open when you go into this and you know what you're going into for, rather than floundering in this idea and then setting you and grounding you back down in reality and showing you how to integrate that in your life. Not the life you need to blow up and go start a new one and live in the woods, because that's the feeling when you get home, is like, oh, this is too much. And we don't want to see that. We want to see you solid in what it was that you've learned, and how do we take that into your family, make you a better husband, make you a better wife, not only to make you somebody better, but to show you the value you have, to show you how to love yourself and work through those dark things that you were struggling with, and show you that you are the medicine and that you can tap in anytime by giving them the tools. Like, there's a million tools you can give someone, but at the end of the day, they have to be willing to do the work and be accountable. If I tell you to do something, I'm telling you for a reason. If you're not going to do it and you don't integrate properly, I can't fix that.